Hi everyone, there's loads of you already. Oh, wow. Dan, could you come off silent so it's not just me in a room alone?
Should we have a conversation?
Yeah, I would.
A two-way conversation.
Do you want to go on video as well so people know that you've got a face?
I do have a face.
There he is.
It's currently
guys.
in a dark room whilst you've got the sunny
Hi,
front of the office there.
Yes, I've got the best place in the office today. Hello everyone. Wow,
Hi Frida. Hi Federico.
Also on time.
Hi Bill.
Federico, hi. Wow, look at you all. Oh, thanks so much for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, thanks for commenting in the chat as well. Let us know where you're all from.
Yeah. Montreal.
Wow, Poland, Portugal.
Thomas, there's a special request to see you. Are you there? There
Hi.
he is.
There he is.
There we
Hello
go.
from France as well. I saw someone talking about France in Montreal. So bonjour.
Wow, you guys are from all over the place. It's amazing. Cool. Well, what's the time now? We'll just give it a couple more minutes just to let other people kind of sneak in. And then we're on schedule for a really cool session today. So thanks so much for joining us. Hugo, just saw your comment. Yes, we'll make the recording available. I believe it's going out on the newsletter. Dan, can you confirm that? You're on mute. I can hear him because he's in the same office as me.
That's the last time that's going to happen, I promise you. Yeah, so we send a newsletter out tomorrow. That's going to contain the screen recording and any of the other bits we talk about today. But Isla, you can let everyone know about the other bits and bobs we're going to include in there.
There's a London in Canada. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Dan?
The little boring one in Canada. I doubt it's that boring.
Yeah. Jersey Shore. Great. Oh, I know what I've just spotted. When you're writing comments, there's an option to change it to send chat to everyone. If you can just make sure you're sending chat to everyone, that would be great. So you can all see each other. Annabelle Jordan, hi from Buckfastleigh. She's our interior designer, so she's just over there.
Yeah, she's about 20 meters away.
Hi Fiona, nice to see you again. Wow.
I feel like every city in the world, or maybe every city in Europe at least, has its counterpart in the US and the Canada.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Amazing.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, I think there's so many of you here that I'm a tiny bit nervous, but we'll crack on, and more people can trickle in as they arrive. So let me pull up my little guide chat. Please keep chatting in the chat. It's really nice to see you all. Obviously we can't see your faces, so it's nice to see that you're there and that you're kind of enjoying the session. So first things first, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, it's absolutely mega. You're from everywhere. It's really, really cool. You're joining our Academy webinar series. This is actually our 4th session and our last session of the year. And we've got a really, really good one for you. You may have already seen, we've got some really fantastic guests who I'll introduce you to properly in a minute, but I imagine you all know who they are. And we've also got a session from Dan who's going to be showing you exactly how we create exterior landscapes here at Archilime. You'll see that I'm at Archilime HQ, our lovely office right by the river, so thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, I'm just going to throw up a poll. Now let's see if I can do this. Dan, it might be you that has to do it.
Is it me?
I think so. So we're going to throw up a poll that's a few questions about who you are, your level of modelling skills, and exactly what you want to see in this webinar series. And we'll use that to help us kind of as we go along.
Wow, okay. Isla, can you see the results as well?
I can't see the results.
No? It seems to be about half of the audience are architects, a quarter 3D artists, and then we've got interior designers making up about 10% so far, landscape architects 15%, and 5% in the other column. If you're in the other column, let us know how you're using SketchUp. We're always interested in hearing how all of you are using it.
Cool. Should we go on to the next question, Dan? Oh, there we go. I can see the poll results now. Interesting. Lots of architects joining us today. That's cool.
Okay. Now let's hear about your modeling level. So how comfortable you are within SketchUp. Okay. This is looking good. Intermediate, expert level. Seems to be like we've got a very well-informed audience today, Isla and Thomas.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to end that poll. So this is the breakdown of the audience today.
Cool.
And now let's take a look at how comfortable everyone is within V-Ray.
Well, Dan, now that you've made me co-host, I can...
You can drive.
I'll drive.
We don't normally do that, do we? You normally do the polls and then I
know, I'm feeling a little bit out of control.
Must have control.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Oh, great. There's a real kind of share between everyone. So some complete beginners, some experts, some confident. Really cool. Great. 100%. You guys are so good at these polls. So I'll share the results with you so you know who you're with. So pretty equal there. So Thomas, this is quite good for when you get into your Skatter demo as well. So polls. Launch. This is a Skatter question. So this is specifically about Skatter. Can you guys all see that question? Yeah, there we go. There it goes. Cool.
Nice. That's a good spread there.
Yeah. Epic. Great. And then we got one more question. What do you want to see the most? Here we go. So in this webinar, Thomas is going to take us through a demonstration. What do you want to see the most?
This is from Thomas.
Epic.
Fantastic.
Okay.
What's your answer, Thomas?
There we go. There we go. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for doing that. So let's move everything over there. Right. So like I said there, we've got a demo from Thomas coming up later, who is going to be giving us the world exclusive introduction to the newest version of Skatter, which was only released last week. So you guys are probably getting a sneak peek there. I wonder if any of you guys have used it already, or is this going to entice you to get it? Hopefully. So some quick introductions. I'm Isla. I'm the accounts manager here at Archilime, which is our big company. So we work in property marketing primarily. So we've got a team just over there who are all producing CGIs right now for our lovely clients. We've also got Dan. Dan, can you give us a wave? Dan is our head of operations at Archilime, but he's also the head of our academy. So he teaches all of our academy courses and is absolutely the go-to if you've got any questions about your modeling skills using V-Ray, anything like that. Dan's your man. as I mentioned earlier, we're also really happy to be joined by Thomas and Moan from Lindale,
yeah.
Lindale, there we go, who created Skatter. So they're the experts on Skatter. They can tell us all we need to know, all we want to know. So a little plan, this is how the session's going to go. Dan's going to be up first, so he's going to be using SketchUp to basically create an external scene that Thomas is then going to take forwards, populating it with 3D models using Skatter to basically get it photorealistic and ready for final render. So we're going to be seeing that whole process, so from nothing all the way up to final render. After the demos, we've got some really cool prizes to give away, including a place on our Access into V-Ray course. So that would be if you're confident using SketchUp, but you need some help getting to that next level, really taking your CGI to the next level, as well as a free license for Skatter and a free license for Transmutr. So we've got some really cool prizes. So just stick around till the end. At the end, we'll be putting all of your names into a hat, drawing out a couple of names, not hats, and we'll be getting in contact to give you those prizes. So I think it's enough from me. Dan, are you ready to get started?
I am.
We can talk about a little bit about how we use Skatter and then take it away.
Sounds good. Thanks for that, Isla. Yeah, so as Isla said, I'm the head of operations for Archilime Visualizations and also Archilime Academy. And I've got about just over 10 years worth of experience within SketchUp and V-Ray. And the last 8 of those years have been with Archilime, where we're all about producing, high quality 3D worlds and visualizations. 3 years ago, we decided to start the academy, the Archilime Academy, to teach parts of our workflow. Most of this is done on our most popular courses, which are the Access into SketchUp or the Access into V-Ray for SketchUp courses. So these are both just targeting, building a basic understanding of the software, beginner to intermediate kind of level. And we also have top-up courses for the more advanced users, just for fully bespoke courses. Now the introductions are out of the way. I want to talk to you about what the plan is, really. So I'm essentially going to be building up, as Isla said, a landscape from nothing into something which hopefully Thomas can then use to start teaching some of the concepts of the newest version of Skatter, which I know is what most of you are here for. So what I'm going to be doing is starting off the project in the most lifelike way possible. So a typical scenario in that we would be receiving existing topography drawings from a client. This comes in the form of, in our case here, it's a DWG, a CAD drawing of contours. So I'm going to import these, and then I'm going to start building the project up by adding a topography mesh, looking at editing that, then looking at adding different levels and all sorts of other stuff. We'll get to it. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and we can really get going with this. So first of all, I'm going to go up to File and Import. And as most of you already know, we're just importing our CAD drawing in this way here. Now I've already done this, so you can see our CAD drawing here. I'm triple clicking on the lines just to make sure they're all connected, which is always nice. I've then selected them all and choosing one of the 2 different ways of producing topography meshes. So within SketchUp, you can actually produce, I know a lot of you would know how to do this anyway, you can produce a topography mesh using the sandbox tools, especially the icon I just selected there, which is the From Contours section. Now what this does is it gives us a mesh which looks like this when you turn on your hidden geometry. It's okay, it gives us a really nice form of the general landscape, but fundamentally it's quite difficult to edit because the triangles, they vary in size. So it's much nicer to be working with what we call a quad mesh, because these enable us to make nice organic shapes and we don't end up with kind of jagged areas. So what we've done is just selected all of the contours again and then highlighted the the topo shaper icon here. And it works in a very similar way. Once you've selected the contours, hit that button, you then end up with the options here to start creating a quad mesh, as opposed to the other version we looked at with the sandbox tools. And we can control just how detailed this quad mesh is. Now, obviously, the more detailed this is, the longer it will take to generate, but the better quality your topography mesh is going to be. You could dynamically update this here. It might take a while, but it will calculate the terrain for you. And this is a perfect way to build almost like a base layer, which you can then start developing further by editing using plugins like Artisan, which we'll look at in a moment. So orbiting around here, you can see how the quad mesh sometimes doesn't quite touch the contour lines, or sometimes it kind of overlaps them, because what it's trying to do is calculate, it's almost like draping a quad mesh. So a big area split up into quads or squares, and it's just trying to touch as many of those contour lines as possible. You've got various features here, which I'm playing with, where you can adjust the what it looks like on the hilltops. So whether you want to round off the topography or whether you just want a flat top. There's lots of functionality here, and there's lots of things that you can edit and adjust. So in a nutshell, this is how we tend to build our topography from the start. This is, we're looking at ideally creating this as a base and then using Artisan, which we'll now take a look at, to go ahead and then edit this later. This is quite a popular plugin. You can get Topo Shaper from Sketchucation, I believe. It's one of the Fredo tools. So you can see the difference between the two. There's lots of nicely evenly sized quads in the foreground here, as opposed to in the background with the sandbox tools. It's all over the place in terms of size. The next step, typically, we look to drop our building in at the correct height, well, within our scene, so you can see how it's kind of floating here. So just moving around, we can see that we do need to do some editing to the topography so that our building doesn't just fall down the hill. The main way of doing that is using this Artisan toolbar. So we absolutely love this. This is one of the most satisfying processes we go through on a daily basis. And what we're doing here is just selecting the select brush, which allows us to pick multiple quads at once, because fundamentally what we need to try and do now is level off the area that I'm selecting. So we're looking at creating a nice flat area, and we can just double check that runs all the way under the building by fading the rest of the model. So you can see there, when we've got the area selected, we can tweak that if we like, but the next step is to head down into the Artisan toolbar once more and click on the Make Planar option. So this is going to pull up a new window, and it asks us to choose the plane that it would like us to generate. Now for us, we want the XY plane, which just so happens to be the flat version. As soon as we hit OK, we've now got a nice flat surface, which is dictated by the area that we selected. So what we can do is we need to move this up a bit. So before clicking elsewhere, we can then press the Move tool and then really easily just move this up and down or anywhere else we like. So we'll hold Shift once it's locked on the blue axis, and then just snap the cursor over to a base point on the model. So this now guarantees us a nice flat area around the building for us to work with and develop a little bit more. So with that, we can now deselect everything like we've just done here. And now comes a really fun bit. So we're looking at sculpting and smoothing and flattening. As you can see here, by right-clicking, you've got lots of different options that you can use and adjust Artisan to work for you. So we're looking at flattening a larger area around the initial area we'd selected. So we've got the size of that circle determines the area within which the smoothing or the flattening area will take effect. But also the red arrow determines just how large or how intense of an effect that would be. We'll see an example of where this is more applicable later when we're trying to smooth. But in this case, we could just use the up and down arrows to control just how intense that smoothing effect would be. And as you can see, it's just nice and easy here. It smooths off an area. It looks really nice and organic. But as you can see, when we approach an edge, it kind of tears away from the base. So we don't want that. This is something that we have to try and avoid. So what we can do is, if we can select all of the edges, we can, Artisan has a really cool feature where we can actually crease those edges so that they never move. And the way that we do that is by double clicking on the surface so that it selects the face and the edges, and then really simply just deselecting the face. Then going to Tools, Artisan, Crease Selection, and make sure the scope is set to edges and vertices. This then gives us a prompt that, you know, all of the edges are now creased. So we can head back into that smooth tool. And then as we start playing around and smoothing these areas, it no longer pulls away from the edge. I must admit, this was one when we were learning how to use Artisan. This frustrated us for a while until we worked out how to do this. But the effects are great. It means that you can really localize your area of work. And fundamentally, you've got much more control in how you edit your topography. So as you can see here, I'm now sculpting the landscape. So you can use the up and down arrows to even have a negative sculpt feature. You can inflate, as we're doing here, and you could create mountains as well if you like. Not sure I'd quite want that in my backyard, but you can smooth it back over like this using the same rules that we've just looked at. And I think fundamentally this is what enables us to produce the exterior scenes that we do. You always need a good base to start with. What we tend to do is we'll use this process and then we'll go ahead and start working with programs like Skatter after that. So this is it. This is the general workflow with regards to how we can edit a quad mesh topography mesh. But we can actually look at how it would react when we'd try and edit one of the sandbox topography meshes, which, you know, we would expect to be slightly harder to work with because the triangles are different sizes, so that we don't have a smoother hillside there as we did with the quad mesh, simply because the polygons are different sizes. So we're always looking to try and work with quad meshes where we can. Got a funky pattern there on the surface. So you can see I'm toggling the hidden geometry off and on there all the time. I'd highly recommend anyone that works with topography to maybe set yourselves a hotkey to turn on your hidden geometry. I think it's a nice way to be able to see just how smooth and how much of an effect your editing is having on the overall mesh as a whole. So that's that. That's doing this from contours. But another situation you may encounter is that you're given maybe like a site plan, and you know where your flat areas need to be. So what you can always do is draw those from plan view and then move blocks almost to the appropriate heights. So you can see here how I've got a teal covered one, colored one there, which is going to be my lawn eventually. You've got the browner ones, which will end up being paving. You've got the pink ones, which might end up being like gravel or some more paving. But I've pushed these to the correct heights already. And then what I'm going to try and do is build the rest of the landscape around that, now that I know the general layout, in a sense, of my terrain. So what we're looking at doing here is obviously filling these gaps. So we could see that you're going to have to jump like if any of you guys remember Takeshi's Castle, where you're having to jump from one block to the next. We're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and model different kinds of connectors. We're going to add different groups. Generally, we're looking to now begin to think about retaining the land that we're then going to be connecting later. So things like adding the staircase or adding details like the paving. This is a really nice time to do that now when you don't have the kind of like the clutter of the rest of the landscape around you. It's very easy to work in isolation. But the key thing to remember here is that we're always working in groups. This type of modeling just isn't possible if you're not using groups and components, which I know is a huge, huge part of Scatter's workflow anyway. And I think this is just, this continues that here. You can see I've added just added a nice, say, gravel border around the paving, which will not be fun to cut, but that's the benefit of doing this in a 3D virtual environment. Now, we've got a bit of land to retain here. So looking around the base of the top paving, I'd like the land to kind of loop around the edge of this patio area. So I need to actually retain some of that land. And to do that, I'm going to use a plugin called Profile Builder, which some of you may already know anyway. But to even begin to use that, we need to construct like a line where we'd want the land to run. So what we'll do is I've pulled up like the footprint of this general section. There's lots of curves, which doesn't make this easy. But what we can do is use a section plane to kind of like slice through that. And once we've made that slice, we could choose, well, we could choose the level that we want the ground to go down to, and then just rotate that section plane so that we can kind of manually create a path that runs around here and then up to the doorway level up at the top. So right now I'm just rotating that section plane, and then by eye, as I lift this up, I'm keeping my eye on this section here. I'm not worried about any of the lines in the foreground for now, because I'm just trying to resolve that line basically, which then will control where the ground runs into. So this is a very common question we get asked. How do you model the retaining walls? You know, it's all very well knowing how to use Artisan and Topo Shaper, but if you've got a piece of ground that ends here on one level, but then here on another, you can't exactly create, you know, like a really steep slope in between. You need a way for the land to meet at the top and then separately again at the bottom. So this is part of that process, in that now we're just trying to isolate the lines that we're going to be using to connect, well, basically to connect this whole area. So we can now head back to the footprint again, unhide it, and then do that same process, but for the second section over on the other side. So this is quite a fiddly process, and I appreciate some of you may also have other ways of doing this. This isn't the only way of doing this by any means, but we tend to find it gives us a nice result with regards to using what we've already got. So we're not redrawing extra, it's not taking up extra time, but we're still applying the principles of copying lines from one group, and then what we're doing is pasting and placing maybe in another. So right now, let's just get rid of the footprint, and we can take a look at the paths. And what we'll do is now is just try and refine it a little bit more, so that we then have a nice sweeping curve that comes up from the base of the stairs all the way to the top of the paving, and then round that really awkward curved section that we've got there. So right now I'm just selecting the lines. We can see that they're in two separate groups. So I'll just select those and then explode them. And now we've got the lines that we can use to constrain some land eventually. What we're going to focus on now, though, is building a component which we're going to run around a path. So I'm thinking lots of beams, you know, maybe 100 by 100 millimeter vertical beams that we could just peg into the ground following the curve that I'd set out before. And in doing so, what we'll be able to do is we should then have a nice effect, stepped effect, as it runs around that curve. Rather than manually placing these, we find this technique works so much better. What we can see here is that my axes aren't aligned properly. So this will become clearer when we look at Profile Builder, but it's really important to make sure that when we're setting our axes, when using components and in general, but especially with Profile Builder and with Skatter, that we're aware of where the origin is within our components. So what we can see here is I'm now bringing up the Profile Builder assembly. In the component tab, I'm just going to hit the plus. As we can see, I can't select that yet because I hadn't made that group of components. call this whatever you like, preferably something, don't just hit create components. What we can then do is we can pick the vertical beam, and we can now see a preview within the profile builder dialog. So what I then tried to do is select the path, which is the one we've got selected, and try and apply the characteristics of that assembly to this path. But it didn't allow me to do that because there was almost like a bisecting line in my path. It wasn't a continuous line. So I used edge tools there to try and find that gap, and that worked quite well there. Now what we're trying to do is look at adjusting the form of this setup. So I'm just trying to drop I'm basically trying to drop the component so that now it runs along so the top of the component runs along the line, which is much closer to what we'd expect to see here. And in reducing the spacing, we can really refine just what this particular arrangement looks like. We can pick the component and then apply assembly attributes to keep making live updates to this. And when we unfade the rest of the model or unhide it, you can see how this is beginning to take shape. You know, we've got the line, we've got the general form of the assembly as it sweeps around the edge there. We're really just fine tuning this now by adjusting the spacing and then updating using that third button along here, the update assembly attributes. Cool. So it's nice. It follows the sweeping path. That's what we wanted. So I think this is one of those techniques that it's one of those plugins, Profile Builder, which is parametric. And we owe a lot to Profile Builder because it enables us to do things which manually, you know, modeling that would take a very, very long time to do, you know, manually placing those up and down, you know, no one's got time for that. So this is one we made earlier. I've color coded all of this, as you could probably tell. This is just so that I can differentiate between the different types of finishes that I'd expect to see. Obviously, you're going to be adding realistic materials to this in the latter stages, but this is nice just to show general form. So you can see here that I've kind of assigned the pink sort of color. This is going to be gravel eventually. We've got other additions to that we've now added. So models that we've built or taken from other sources, like adding the small kitchen area out there, as well as adding the canopy as well. But now I think the most important part is filling some of these gaps. So what we've done is used some of the lines that we were working with before, like for the sweeping profile builder section. And we're drawing now where we want the land to meet our model. So you can see from what I've highlighted here, this is now going to be the border of maybe like a grassy area or, you know, any kind of area that you like. We're partitioning areas of the model by tracing where we want the ground to come and meet them. And in doing that, we use a plugin called Soap, Skin and Bubble. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of this before. It's awesome, really, really useful. I believe it's on the extension warehouse. You know, maybe if someone knows in the comments, you can let me know. But the general premise is that you select the lines and it will then generate a soap skin bubble. So it's the most between those lines. So this is the most efficient way to connect those lines in a closed loop. And then it will just create kind of like a mesh for you over those edges. You can then apply different materials to this. You know, I'm going to apply a soil material to this later on. You've got the option here of, again, creasing the edges like we did before so that we can smooth some of these areas out if we wanted to. Yeah, Curvyloft does this as well. Thanks for that, Matthew. That's definitely one that we would recommend using as well. Curvyloft, we'll use that in different scenarios. I think for roads, that's really useful because you can just offset a line and then you get a really nice, you know, sweeping path that you can connect using those. For closed loops, we use Soap, Skin and Bubble. And here we can see, I've just color coded this. We've got purple for like a grassland. We've got red, which is going to be soil and flower beds. So that the 3D curves that we mentioned before, we're generally extrapolating those from other 3D forms that we've got in our model. So you saw me lift up the footprint. The footprint of that organic seating area. When I lifted that up, we just took those section slices, and then suddenly you've got these really complex 3D curves. Another really, really useful tool to use, which I haven't gone ahead and used really here, is the Bezier toolbar. Bezier spline, I think it's called. You can create polylines. You can add classic Bezier curves, cubic Bezier curves, Catmull splines. You can do all sorts with it, and it's a really useful way to enhance the line drawing capabilities within SketchUp. What we're looking at here is now adding the finishing touches. So we're going to be producing CGIs of this in the future. So I thought it would just look awesome if we had downlights underneath each one of these. They're going to be concrete plinths. So it's going to look like it's floating, backlit by lights. Thought that would be quite cool. So we've added all of these in here, and I've just turned on my back edges so that you can see the rectangle lights. I've also added IES lights underneath the canopy or the pergola here. And I've added a pond as well. This would look great if you can add other pieces of vegetation around the pond. You can really get some nice, get a nice water material on the surface there as well. And fundamentally, this is it. I know it's a very quick, run through of how we create this, and I'm a little bit out of breath now, but it's how we've gone from a contour drawing to a topography mesh. We can also then choose to manually draw out our different levels from a site plan, which maybe be given from a client or that we draw ourselves. We can then go ahead and add some more hardscaping details. So like paving, steps, nice details like patios. We've got pergolas, we've got the retaining wall section here as well. We can then, from those lines, create the soap skins, which then end up completing the model. And fundamentally, we're then looking to add some more V-Ray elements. So things like water, lights, generally things that would hopefully make for a really nice looking CGI. And I think now's a really good time to just pause for a moment. Thomas, I know wants to try and do something with this file and show off some of the amazing capabilities of the newest tool sets that Lindele are offering. So, Thomas, what do you think? Are you ready to crack on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Right, I'll stop sharing and then hand over to you if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you see my screen? Great. Okay, so I'll go over really quickly the basics of Skatter for the few of you who don't know, who have never used it, because if I look at the poll, there are not that many of you. So basically, Skatter is used to copy a set of objects. It can be anything, vegetation or anything else, any component or group in SketchUp, and copy them with many parameters on surfaces or along curves, a bit like a profile builder. So there are three main components parts to Skatter, to how it works. First, the what you want to scatter, so what you want to distribute. In this case, these are these objects. So that's what we call the scattered objects. So I can come in here and click this icon and pick my objects here in the model. Then second part is where do you want to put these objects? So in this case, I want to put them on this terrain here. So I'm going to click on the icon here to pick a surface as a host. So the where part is what we call hosts. So they can be surfaces, curves, or even individual points that you can pick in the model. So let's pick it, and you can see that the surface has been populated with my objects. So for now they are randomly placed, but you have many options to place them differently. I won't go in the full detail here, but this is the third part, is the how. So how do you want to distribute these objects? When you're done with your parameters, you simply click on generate and it creates the objects. There is a powerful feature in Skatter when you are doing renderings. It's called the render only feature here. So if I enable this and click on generate, you can see that there is nothing in my model here. But if I start a render, you'll see that the objects do appear in the render. So let's give it a second. Vira isn't initialized. This is the first render, that's why it's a bit slow. So yeah, there you go. So it's really, really handy for vegetation because, as you know, SketchUp cannot handle a lot of geometry. Even when using proxies, you can end up really taking your model to a really slow state and lagging. And finally, one important part as well, which is part of the how, is are the masks. So a mask is basically, if I want to, let's get the preview running again. If I want to restrict the area on my hosts on which I want instances of my objects, I can, for instance, draw a circle. And if I make it a group, I can come in here and pick it to restrict where I want my objects to be. So it can be inclusive or exclusive. I can also paint a mask, stuff like that. There are other kinds of masks that I will go into later. A new addition to let's generate it. Yeah, a new addition to the version 2. Let me. I have the sorry, I have the zoom toolbar, which is hiding my toolbars. So we have a new composition manager. So it simply allows you to manage your compositions in your model. So you can also create new ones here. And the addition compared to Skatter version 1 is that when you generate in the model, they also appear here. So you can differentiate them using this icon here. So this is a render-only composition. This is an in-model composition. And you can toggle them as well. So for the in-model composition, they are hidden, and the render-only will be hidden in the render itself. Finally, there is we have recently launched a new extension which is called 3D Bazaar, and it replaces the library in Skatter, so it's tightly integrated with Skatter. So if you go to the Skatter contents category here, the marketplace, you can find lots of Skatter ready assets. So 3D Bazaar is it's an asset manager, if you will. You can manage your local library, so you can import your own assets, and you can search in them. You can have as many folders as you want, and Skatter will scan. 3D Bazaar will scan your all of your folders and subfolders indefinitely, and index everything, and you can do a quick search here. And you can also access a marketplace. So here there are free and paid assets. So it can be vegetation, but we also have people, 3D people, and furniture and stuff like that, which are made by third-party vendors. So in this case, let's show you how to import a simple grass, for instance. Here I click, I choose Skatter grass, which is a simple grass. You will have to download it. I have already downloaded it, but here I can choose the geometry type. So in this case, I want proxy because I'm using V-Ray and I only want to get proxies to keep my model lightweight. And let's click import, and it will create a new composition in my model. It has imported the scatter object already. And here I can simply pick my host, generate, and start a render, and I have grass. Okay, so let's move on to the project. Here it is. Okay, so this is the model that Dan has created. I have removed all the materials and added some textures to the terrain itself and the pond. This is a simple dirt texture, and I really recommend to have a texture on your terrain, even though you will be covering it with vegetation. It's important because sometimes you can see between the grass blades, or in this case here I have put wood chips because we will have flowers and other types of small vegetation, so we will obviously see the terrain. Okay, so let's start by maybe covering this whole area with grass. So I go back to 3D Bazaar and import the simple scatter grass here. There are several options. You see cut grass, tall grass, etc. We'll use them in different contexts. It's simply the height of the grass that's different. So here I can also simply click on this little icon here, and it takes my latest settings and imports that way. Here, let's pick the host. I'm done, generate. Okay, and I can start a render, and you will see my grass here. So one thing with these presets is that to make them, to optimize them a bit, or let me disable all this that I have already made. You can see here that yeah, so what I was saying is that these presets are made of small patches of grass, which are around 40 centimeters wide. So if you look at the edge here, you can see the patches, and they cannot create a straight line around the edge here because they are only circles. So to counteract this, when you import your presets here, you have the option for these presets only to import the border as well, which are simply smaller patches which are able to create this nice edge. So here you can see they are only scattered along the edge here. So let's do that for the grass. I will do the same here, but this time with the cut grass maybe, because it's for the loan, I mean. So let's import it. Pick my host, generate, okay, and for the border as well. The border is not really important if you are doing images from far away, but in case we want to create some close-up shots, it can be handy. I'm sorry if you can hear my son in the background, but he's screaming a bit. I hope it's not too distracting. Okay, so now let's create some vegetation on this part here. So the terrains that the sloped terrain that Dan has created. So to do that, let's create a new composition. And in this case, I will not import a ready-made composition like I did with the grass, but I will create a new one from scratch. So here I will pick my host. So this one, this one, and here. Okay, so I can increase the density here. So for now, it's a little bit too spread apart. So I will increase to maybe 4 objects per meter square. One issue that you can see here is that because of the overlap between the stairs and the terrain, we have some points that are generated inside of the stairs. So we can exclude this area, but by picking this group as a mask. So the area mask here, let's pick that. And now you can see that it's really not what we want because we have objects only on the steps. So we want to invert the mask. So to do that, I will click this green icon here to make the mask exclusive. And that's better. You can see the blue line is the footprint of the mask. Okay, so now I need some objects to scatter here. I don't have anything in my scattered objects list for now. So I will simply import, for instance, let's go to plants here. So in the scatter contents category here, it's only ready-made content for scatter itself. But in the other categories, you can find individual models or even sets of models with variants that you can import and use in Skatter then, but they will be imported as single components and not as ready-made compositions. So in this case, I want this one, for instance. So it's not a composition because it doesn't have the scatter icon here, but you can purchase it, for instance. I'm not logged in, it seems. So let's log in. I have already purchased it and I can import it. So I want it as a proxy again. And here I have a few options for the files. There are 5 variants. So let's import maybe the third one. And here you can see that I have my object here. So I have already imported a few of them. And then I can pick them as scattered objects. I could also pre-select all of them and shift click on this icon here to populate the list directly. Just be aware that there is a little bug that I noticed when preparing, that when you do that, all the colors of the objects are the same, but it's no big deal. So the colors you can change here. It's a new addition in Skatter version 2, which can be handy because before they were all the same colors. So now that I have my scattered objects, my distribution settings and my hosts, I could generate and start to render. But first I want to set a few settings, a few more settings. Here you can see that all the objects are aligned with the world, the model axis. So in this case, I want to break the repetition. So I will introduce random transformation. So let's add some random rotation, maybe horizontal mirroring as well, which would simply randomly flip the objects to further break the repetition. And finally, random scale, and let's increase the range. So what this does is randomly scale the instances of the objects within this range. So from 60% of their size to 140%. Another thing is that you can notice that there is a lot of overlap between the plants here, and it's not very realistic, but because in real life they will not be as close as each other. So I will use another distribution type. It's random, which is completely random, but it has a tendency to create clumps like that. So I will switch to uniform, which is, it still looks somewhat random, but the objects should be rather evenly spread apart. So here you can see that there is a bit less overlap. If it's still too much, I could decrease the density, for instance, or introduce some collisions that I will maybe talk about later. Okay, so one thing I would want maybe as a landscape architect is to group my plants together to create some clusters of plants. So for this, we use a feature that is called zones, which I can enable here. So what this does is create zones of a certain size. So in this case, it's set to 1 meter by default. If I put 5 meters in this case, you can see that it creates large zones which are roughly 5 meters in size. It's actually an average. They are not all exactly 5 meters, but it gives you a sense of scale. So I want it probably smaller, maybe 2 meters. This looks okay. And it's not really the case here, but if you have, for instance, let's say I want just for the demonstration, if I have a larger zones here, maybe 10 meters, you can see that the transition is really harsh. So in that case, I can introduce some blur to blur the lines between the zones, the cells. I can also add some noise, which will randomly swap objects between 2 zones. I could also create empty zones if I want some empty space in here, which can be handy in some situation, but not here. So let's go back, remove this extra host that I have added here, and put 2 meters again here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe a bit less noise. Okay, so one thing that we notice as well is that there is some plants here which are overlapping with the building. So they are entering the building. I guess this yellow one here would be exactly traversing the walls. Yeah. So we don't want that. So what we could do is use the boundaries filter, which will, I can offset the boundaries. So the boundaries are the edges of the hosts, for instance, this line, or also the footprint of the masks. So I can introduce an offset, for instance, the 0.5. So here you can see that I have less overlap with my building, but the issue is that all boundaries are taken into account. So this is not really what I want. So in this case, I will use a mask, a paint mask that I have showed earlier. So it's this icon here. So here you see I have a brush, a circular brush. It's a bit too big, so I'm going to make it smaller, maybe 30 centimeters. And here I'm going to paint along the building here. And so here you can see it's once again inverted because masks are inclusive by default. So let's make it exclusive. And here you can see I have a lot less overlap here. There is still this one, so maybe I can refine my mask here. Or you can also simply, if the distribution is not exactly what you want, but you want to keep these parameters as is, you can simply go down here, scroll down and click on new seed. So the seed is simply a random number that is used for all the random generation. So if you click new seed, you will have a different look, which will be very similar, but the randomness will be a bit different. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And finally, we may want to have some more manual control over where the instances are placed. So we could always add a different type of host, which is a point set. So what this is when I click on it, I can pick individual points in the model. So for instance, I can add points here, which will be populated with instances. Let's add some more maybe in the corner here. I could also add the whole terrain as a host and use a paint mask, for instance. That would probably give similar results. But in some cases, you want to really pinpoint where the instances should be. And of course, you can erase the points if you want to. Okay, so let's generate this and try render. And let's see how this looks. here. So Dan, how is my time? How much time left do I have?
You're good. Have you got much more to do?
I do, but can you tell me how much time I have left?
I think you keep going. You know, I don't know about.
Yeah, but just so I know if I continue on this project or maybe show more of the version 2 features.
Yeah, you know, 15 minutes, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, I'll continue a bit on this.
Awesome stuff.
So here you can see my my render with all the vegetation. So we could always come in here and refine the distribution. By the way, let's give it a name. So maybe decorative vegetation and generate. Okay, I already had one. Let's delete it. Okay, so let's go over to the pond because Daniel seems to really love his pond. So I have already prepared a few compositions here. So here I have a type of plants which are which do live in the water, but only at the edge of the pond. So what I've done here is I've picked the pond group, the water, which as you can see, it already has a contour. So it's pretty handy because in this case, I can use the boundaries of the host to drive the distribution. So I have simply random distribution, but the important part is here, the boundary. So by default, I get this with my random transformation and everything. But if I enable boundaries, here you can see that I have put an offset. So I don't have instances right at the edge of the right at the boundaries here. So if I put 0, you can see that they come all the way here, but it is not really what I want because I want the plants in the water. So I've put an offset of 1 meter, and I also have a fall off. So if I disable the fall off, you can see that I have instances everywhere. But if I add 1 meter here, by default, you get this result. So there is a decrease in density, and you can also enable scale. You have a decrease in scale or density from the boundaries up until the follow-up distance that you put in here. So I can increase the distance. In this case, I only want density. And here you can see that we have a new feature in version 2, which is the follow-up curve editor. It seems my video has freezed. Can you still hear me?
We can still hear you, Thomas.
Okay, great. I'm not seeing my face moving, so that's why I'm wondering. So in this case, I can draw a curve which will drive the profile of the fall-off, if you will. So you can have a really intricate. Let's make this one sharp, and you can have some really weird results like this if you want to. But in this case, let's clear the curve, and I only want a really linear curve, but I want to invert it because I want my instances only at the edge and not in the middle. So this point here is what the density is at the edge, and this is what the density is at the distance here. So if I invert the curve, I have 100% density at the edge and 0 at the distance. But here, let's decrease the distance. So at 1 meter from the edge, I have 0 density. So that's what you can see in the middle here. Okay, I have another one, which is this one for the pond. So here I have simply selected the whole terrain as a host, and I have used paint mask that I have painted here. Maybe I can do it again. Full disclosure here, I noticed that, I mean, version 2 is still very young. It was released a week ago, so there is a lot of room for improvement. But when I first started to use the paint tool on the very dense terrain, by dense I mean that there is a lot of geometry. So if I show my hidden geometry here, you can see that I have optimized a bit the terrain because the paint tool was a bit struggling to preview, only to preview. When drawing, it was lagging. So you can do that, but it's not an obligation. It really depends on your use case. So here I can erase what I've painted here. And done. So yeah, that's it for this one. Here again, I have a fall off to only have around the pond and to decrease the density of the border of the mask. I also, yeah, for this one, I also used a technique which is, I mean, a feature which is the altitude filter. So if I disable it, okay, it's not really the case with the masks. Let's say my mask is a little bit bigger in here. So you can see that I have instances all over the terrain, even underwater, but it's not really what I want. But I can filter out the instances by altitude. So I know that the water is at 1 meter and 90 centimeters above the origin of the model. So in this case, I can come here and enable altitude, and I've put here 1.9 meters. So if I disable this, you can see that I have instances underwater, but if I restrict the bottom altitude to 1.9 meters, it's cut off to this height. Okay, so maybe we can move on. Let's just show you maybe a render of what it looks like at the end. I also added some water lilies from that you can find for free in 3D Bazaar as well, and daisies and stuff like that, and a couple trees that are also from 3D Bazaar. Okay, so the new features in version 2. So let's move on. Excuse me. Okay. So these are some clips that you may have seen in our trailer, but I will go more in depth. So we have a random material feature now. So you can pick different materials. So here you can see I'm picking them from the model, but you can also pick in a list. And then these materials will be randomly assigned to the instances that will be generated by Skatter. So in this case, here you can see on the left the base objects with only the yellow material, but here on the right they have different colors because they receive different materials. So in this case, the material are applied to the faces that do not have any material by default. It's just like applying a material to a component instance in SketchUp. It's exactly the same behavior. So here, this is an image mask, which is also a new feature. So what it allows you is to use a black and white image as a mask. So instead of picking an object in the model or drawing a paint mask, you can use an image. So I will maybe show you in SketchUp and use, where is my image? Oh, it looks like I have lost my image. That's okay. Let's draw a new one. This is unfortunate. Okay, I don't know where I've put it. I will maybe use the one I have in my hands here, which is the Archilime logo. Let's open up Photoshop in the background. Okay, so here let's create a new composition. I will increase the density. Okay, let's take this one. I will increase the levels to have a true black, white on black. This will be better. And let's draw some white pixels here. So here, if I save this, now I can use it as an image mask. So if I come in here, pick my image, which is on my desktop. No, it's not here. Okay. This one. So here you can see I don't have a very good result. This is because my SketchUp face doesn't have proper UV coordinates, so texture coordinates. If I apply, if I, for instance, create a material with the same image, where is it? Desktop. Okay, so if I apply it here and position my texture to be bigger, okay. Now, if I use input front, yeah, okay, so now it's somehow, oh, it's offset. It shouldn't be offset. Okay, but anyway, here you can see if I open my settings for my, let's remove this. If I open my settings for my hosts, here you can see that Skatter can actually generate coordinates, texture coordinates for the host. So this will be used only in Skatter. It will not affect the actual texture placement on your SketchUp face. But here I can choose XY plane. So it's simply putting the coordinates from 0 to 1 all the way to the other side. And here I can go back to my image mask and I can display the texture so it's easier to see. Again, this is not a material applied to the face. This is just a preview within Skatter. You can see that if I disable the preview, I don't have anything, but it's easier to see. So yeah, you can see here that all the white pixels, they receive instances and all the black pixels do not. And if you have a grayscale pixels, gray pixels in between, they will randomly get instances or not depending on the gray value. We can also obviously rotate the image and scale it up if we want to. So this can be a powerful feature for many things in, I think, in landscape architecture or similar. Okay, so let's go back to our list of features. Okay, so this is the path mask. So let's say I want I will remove my image mask. Let's say I want to create tire tracks in my, let's pick that again. Tire tracks in a grass field, for instance. I can draw lines that I can then make a group, and then I can pick it as a path mask. And here you can see that there are instances only along the path. So I can choose the thickness. I can make it wider or thinner, depending on what you want. And obviously you can use follows, etc. Okay. So here is an example. So this is the new composition mask. So it can be handy when you have a composition that depends on another composition. So in this case, the trees are a composition that was generated in model, but it could be render only. It works exactly the same. So here you can see that I want to scatter dead leaves, fallen leaves around my trees. So I have created a composition mask, and I have selected the trees composition as a mask in my dead leaves composition. I can change the radius. So each point that was generated in the trees composition will be used as a seed to create circles around to create my composition. So here you can see the result. So this is simply the new paint mask. So you can see that it follows the geometry much better than the previous one in version 1. This is a new feature. In the past, in V1, we had wrap UV mode, which would allow you to use the UV coordinates to project the instances on the host, but it was limited because it only works with certain features and not everything. But now it works with everything. So if I go back a bit, you can see here that it's world space. So all the instances are projected down from along the blue axis, which we call the minus Z axis by default. And you can switch to object space. So in this case, it will use the axis of the host itself. So here you can see the axis of each group here, or each component. So here you can see that the instances are projected along different axes. And finally, we have face space, which is the same, but it's using the normal of each face. So here you can see that it wraps around the sphere, and it works fine along this wall here. So here you can see I'm using the grid distribution, but it works obviously with everything. It was only to showcase that even with the grid, we continue to have this nice continuity here. So there is an example that was done with it. This is look at. So you can pick a point in your model, and when you do that, all the instances align to look at that point. So you can choose which axis of the instances are aligned with that point. But this is handy for this kind of example. But it can also, instead of picking a point in the model, you can also choose to look at the sun. So it can be handy for some plants, for instance, sunflowers that would be aligned with the sun. And if you change the sun orientation, they will follow if you regenerate your composition. This is the LOD feature. So LOD stands for level of detail. So in this case, you can use it for other things than level of details, but this is how we called it because we think this is the most common use case. So in this case, you see that I have picked the cylinder as a scattered object. And when I open its settings, I can pick LODs, so LODs. So here I pick these two objects, which are the same shape but with less faces. So they will be used in the background from my camera. So here we can set the distance from the camera at which points the cylinder will be switched to one of these two. So for this one, for the first one, it will be 15 meters, and the other one, it will be 25 meters. So now when I generate, here you can see that close to the camera, we have the actual cylinder, and then when we go further away from the camera, it's switched to a simplified version. And the great thing is that since it's in the background, you cannot really tell the difference. So it can be really handy when you have really heavy models, for instance, vegetation, and you have many of them in your model. It can speed up your rendering time. This is another really handy feature, which is convert to composition. So you can take a set of components or groups in your model and convert it to a composition. So this was created with this brick wall was created with regular SketchUp tools. So you can see that the distribution will not be possible to be created in Skatter because we have some different bricks here at the edge of the window, etc. And even the pattern is not possible in Skatter. But here you can see that it was converted. So it created a point set host. So all of these instances are actually points in a point set. And then now you can use all the features from Skatter. So it can be random transformations. And I think one very powerful one is obviously render only. If you want to have a render only composition, but with a distribution that is not possible by default in Skatter, you can create your distribution in SketchUp and then convert it to Skatter composition and then use render only so that it doesn't clutter your model. So here you can see that there is nothing in the model, but when I start a render, it's actually rendered. So this I already talked about. This is the fall of curve editor. So I will not explain it further. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think it's really powerful to create this kind of patterns. You can also preview other compositions. So it would be interesting in this case, for instance, for my dead leaves composition, I want to preview my render only trees composition if it doesn't exist in the model. So yeah, that's a new feature as well. And that's it. That's it for me. Maybe one last thing. We have undo and redo now, which didn't exist before. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Thomas. That was super, super informative. I think everybody watching actually doesn't really want you to stop. But I think we've got...
I can continue if you want to.
But I know, I just think everyone wants it. But it shows that, we'll have to get you on again, definitely. Oh, you're still there, Thomas.
Yeah, it says that my video is stopped because the host has stopped it. So I'm not sure what happened here.
There we go. Sorry, guys. My dog was just being very loud in the background, so I've had to ask her to go elsewhere. Dan, do you want to come back onto video? Let me just put my notes on this one. So I think you guys all learned a lot from that. Any questions? I've been taking them down as I've gone along, and so we've got quite a lot. But if there are any specific questions that you want answered, please pop them in the chat now. Thomas, where can we get this newest copy of Skatter? Let us know.
You can get this on our website, which is lindale.io/skatter. Yeah, maybe we can put the link in the chat or in the description somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Great.
Okay, I lost my video. I'm sorry. That's shut down.
You're a ventriloquist.
So thank you for that, Thomas. Dan, I'm going to pass back over to you. Just whilst people are getting their questions in, perhaps you can talk a little bit about the Academy, because I know that we've been discussing some big plans for 2022, and I want to give these guys a sneak peek into it. So are you okay to give them a bit of an update on what we're going to be up to?
Yeah, sure. We haven't really discussed the specifics yet, have we? But 2022 is going to be huge for us because we've got a masterclass. So a true masterclass in V-Ray for SketchUp. Well, everything from SketchUp all the way up to CGIs, where we will be basically breaking this down into 10 separate chapters. And then from March, what we'll look to do is just give you kind of like a sneak peek at 6 of those chapters. So one a month. We'll have a nice section on each of the relevant chapters that go towards being comfortable and fluent at creating photorealistic CGI. So we're talking about exteriors, interiors, we're looking at landscaping, like the stuff here with Skatter, all of the different elements that kind of come together to create any type of CGI using V-Ray and SketchUp. That's what this is all about. So we're going to be holding one webinar a month from March next year. We're also going to be hosting, maybe twice a month, we'll have like a live Q&A session, maybe like a coffee drop-in, something like that, which we'll be hosting up on a new YouTube channel, which we'll be launching next year. It sounds like everyone out there, you're dying for more material from Thomas and the team at Lindele. So I think we're going to have to ask you guys to come back on at some point.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to get you guys back on for webinar series take 2 in the new year. It feels a bit weird to be talking about the new year already. I feel like it was only just summer in England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't
looking
get
ahead.
summer.
No, that's
we don't get
sadly
one.
true.
Can you just give me 1 minute? I'll be back.
No worries.
Of course. Whilst Thomas is away, how about, what should we do? Should we move on to the Q&A, Dan?
Yeah, the ones that are meant for that I can answer for sure. Yeah. Let's
absolutely.
do it.
So I'll ask the questions. If any come up as we're going along, pop them in the chat. So this one was right at the beginning. It's from Amy. She says, before you import the topo, does it need to be individual contours? A lot of topo is an AECCTINN surface. Does this need to be exploded first before importing?
Yeah, it's always good to just explode it right down so that you're then just working with base lines. I even go as far to, I've got all of these lines here that's currently within a group. I'll often just explode the group itself. I know that there are some issues when going from, say, AutoCAD or another, CAD drawing software to SketchUp. What we tend to find is that the best approach is just to kind of explode it all down, make sure you've got all of your edges out in like the base kind of like group layer, in that they're just raw geometry, so that you can read up there, you've got all of these different edges. That's when you would go ahead and then click on the generate quad mesh tool, and you just go through the motions that we looked at earlier. Really good question.
I think one that follows quite nicely on from that has actually just been asked by Eric, Dan. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Do
you find better results when you weld the topography lines first or a separate line segment?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So I always like to weld them myself, just because it's a little bit easier to work with. It doesn't, you wouldn't be able to, it's not going to stop you from being able to do it if they weren't. So for me, you can see how my lines, they're not welded, but using something like the weld, there is a weld plugin on Extension Warehouse, I think, or you can use the one that I mentioned earlier, which is the Bezier spline. And I'd just like to convert mine to a polyline there. So then each of the red crosses are like endpoints on a line. And what's nice about this as well is that you can see there, it's just a single polyline or curve now. You can actually edit them as well. You can convert these into different types of lines. So like a Bezier line that uses each of those points as like anchor points along the way. Lots of different stuff you could do with it. It's not going to stop you being able to create your topography using Topo Shaper. But if you're anything like me, it's always good to just kind of keep it clean and just go ahead and weld them anyway.
Right. Thanks, Dan. Thomas, you're back. You ready for some questions?
Yeah, I am. There are two things I forgot to talk about. Can I take a couple minutes for that?
Yeah, go for it. The screen's yours.
Okay, so Let's share my screen again. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. So first off, I wanted to talk about the fact that Skatter can be used for other things than vegetation. So there is a really good example, which is this. This was created by Modulus Render, which is I mean, it's Vlad from Modulus Render, which is who has a really great YouTube channel. So you should definitely check it out. He just released this tutorial, and I think this is a really great example. So this is interior design using Skatter. So here he's using a Skatter to create this rough texture on the vase here. So it's just small spheres that have been scattered around. The carpet obviously is all Skatter. So all the knots and the fuzz on the knots, all of this is made with Skatter. And here we can see also the fuzz on the chair here. All of this is made with Skatter. So I thought it would be interesting to also introduce this aspect of Skatter. And finally, maybe I can talk about a little bit about Transmutr. So I forgot to mention, but when you are importing objects, I showed how you can do it with 3D Bazaar, but obviously you can also do it with Transmutr. So let's take an example. For instance, I will show you with Megascans. So maybe some of you are already familiar with it. Megascans is made by Quixel. So they have this tool which is called Bridge, which allows you to access all the Megascans library, which, I mean, I think it's tens of thousands of assets. They also have many 3D plants, for instance. So let's say I would want to import this one in SketchUp. I can use Transmutr. So in this case, I open up Transmutr, and here you can see one of the options to import a model is Megascans Bridge. So you have to set the port, but I mean, you can look this up. It's pretty easy. And here I export from Bridge, and it gets automatically imported in Transmutr. So the good thing about Transmutr is that it tries to keep as much as possible regarding the materials information. So here you can see that my material is already populated with a diffuse, normal map, opacity, etc., which comes from Quixel. So depending on the source of the model, you get more or less data in here. It depends on the source material, and then Transmutr can only extract what already exists and what is readable. So in this case, this will be converted to V-Ray render, but also Thea and Enscape. V-Ray material, I mean. We can also simplify the model. So in this case, if I want a model that will be in the model, that will be full geometry in the model, we can simplify the mesh, which keeps the overall shape, but with a lot less faces. And finally, we can change maybe the units, the size, if it comes in at the wrong scale and stuff like that. And I can create proxies directly from Transmutr. So it will create a SketchUp file, which is a proxy, and when you import it, it will link to the VR mesh or different files depending on your rendering engine. So let's say I want a VR proxy here. And the thing which is unique to Megascans is that some of their assets come with different variants. So here you can see there are 14 different variants of this asset. So here you can select which one you want in Transmutr. So in this case, let's say I just want variant 4, which I have seen here. And then I can simply enable proxy and click transmute. And here I will save it as a SketchUp file. Let's give it a minute. And here in my model, I can come in here. So here you can see I have my SketchUp file, which is the placeholder, the VR mesh with the full geometry, and the maps, which have been exported along with it. And I can simply drag and drop it. And if I start to render, you'll see it. I also used Transmutr in this project because, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to optimize a bit the terrain. So it may not be something you want because, as Dan mentioned, sometimes if you want to continue editing the terrain, you want to keep quad faces because it gives you this nice ability to sculpt the terrain, etc. But if you want, if it's too heavy for your model, or if you feel that you need less faces, you can come in here, right click, and edit in Transmutr. So this will open up Transmutr. Okay, so I already have an instance. Okay, so here you can see that my terrain has been imported in Transmutr, and I can click on show edges and I can reduce the number of faces. So I have already done it on a previous attempt, but you can see that it preserved the shape really well. Here we have more faces because it needed more faces to keep the shape. And here many faces have been discarded because it's almost flat. So yeah, that's it. And if I really simplify it like this, this is extreme. Don't go that far because you are starting to lose the shape here. But just to give you an example, if I now click on Transmute, I need to save it as a file. But when I do, it's automatically replaced in my model here. You can see I have a very simplified version of my terrain. So yeah, that's it for me. Let's bring the questions now.
Very, very cool. Yeah, there was a few questions that were asking about how you managed to simplify the mesh. So that's really, really nice.
But here you can see that there are some artifacts because I simplified it too much. I'm losing the edge definition here. So definitely, I think when I did it earlier, I simplified by, I think, 85%. And it was still keeping the shape as it should.
Awesome. So useful.
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite conscious of time. I mean, I think everyone's got exactly what they want, Thomas. You've been so informative, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas.
We'll just do a few questions before the giveaway.
Yes, sorry for being so long.
No,
it's good.
No,
it's
please
good.
Don't apologize.
We love it.
Yeah, it's exactly what everyone came on for. So thank you so much. We got a question whilst you were doing your demo, which is quite an amusing question. So I thought you might want to answer it. And I'm actually not sure who it's from. So they've got away with it this time. But they say, can you say I'm assuming it's your second name out loud, as I've been reading it for years, but never learned how to pronounce it.
Oh, it's easy. It's Oshkorn.
Oshkorn. Easy.
Yeah, it's
perfect.
Oshkorn.
Oshkorn.
Yeah,
perfect.
You got it. Oshkorn, yeah.
Oshkorn.
But
well, whoever it was.
Don't worry, even for French people, it's not always easy to pronounce.
Really? Well, I think that person will be very happy. So a couple of questions. Dan, do you want to highlight the one you think is the best? I can see you on the Google Doc. So, hi all. This is a question from Olivia. I saw the question regarding Chaos Cloud versus Skatter. In Skatter, can you merge proxies with the file and edit their properties if you wanted to? Can you use Skatter with your own or other proxies? Thomas, this is for you.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is that, can you use Cosmos assets with Skatter? Is that it? I'm not sure I understand the merging part. Can you repeat the question maybe?
I think,
yeah, of course.
I'll give it a go if you want, Isla. I think what Olivia is asking is, you know, with the Cosmos assets within the V-Ray scene, when you merge them and then they begin to act like proxies rather than Cosmos assets, can you use those assets within the Skatter setup? Yeah,
of course. Any object in SketchUp can be used as a scattered object in Skatter.
Right. Okay. Olivia's just added, knowing Chaos Cloud, you can merge assets with your model to edit things about them, like leaf color. Can you do this in Skatter?
Oh, you mean maybe with the assets from 3D Bazaar?
In the Bazaar, is that what you mean, Olivia?
In that case, it depends on the objects and how you import them.
Right.
So with Vera, if you import the assets as proxies, the materials will live in your project model. So in that case, you can edit the materials. But if you use Enscape or Thea, in that case, the materials are in external files,
Right.
in the proxy files. So in that case, it's not that easy to edit them. You can still open these files separately and edit the materials, but
Sure.
there is no merging feature like Cosmos does.
Cool. Okay, I think Olivia has said that answers a question. So thanks for that, Thomas.
Sorry, I'm back. There's another one for Thomas. Do we need SketchUp 2019 or newer for Skatter version 2?
It should work with 2017 upwards. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I say should because sometimes we notice that some features are not behaving correctly in some older version. But please bring it up if it does happen to you, and we'll fix it. It's usually an easy fix when it happens.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, Dan, you go.
I was just going to say, just from knowing you guys at Lindele, you're so good with support and feedback, and I think that's something you take very seriously, isn't it? So any comments, you always seem like you welcome them, and you're fixing bugs all of the time, like in the lead up to this version 2 release. So I think
we try our best with the time we have, and in the following month up until the end of the year. Please be gentle with us because Merwan will be alone running the company because I'm having a baby. So I will not work until the end of the year. So he will be probably overworked. So please be gentle with him.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So Dan, have you got any other questions you'd like to ask? If you're looking at that document.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So Michael asked about the initial landscape apps or plugins that we used. I used quite a few. So what I think I'll do, rather than listing them out now, I'll include links to the plugins in the follow-up email we'll send over tomorrow. So that way you guys could just go ahead, click on which ones that you might be missing, and then just download those yourselves, and then rewatch the webinar if you'd like a little bit more of a tutorial and just to rewatch how I did it. I used the plugin so you could practice on your own.
Should we ask these questions about Twinmotion?
Sorry, where are you?
So we go.
Oh yeah, so Luke asked Thomas, do you have any tips on using Skatter with Lumion or Twinmotion?
Yeah, the issue with these is they are closed gardens, closed ecosystems. So there is no API for extensions and nothing like that. So we cannot really interact with them. Oh, I think my video went down again.
It's okay, we can hear you.
So yeah, that's an issue, and there is no real solution. I think there is a workaround with Lumion, a hacky workaround with. I'm not very familiar with the Lumion, but I think it's called node replacement, something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it even works still. I've seen someone do it years ago, but I don't know. But yeah, I'm afraid there is no real solution to this. We are stuck. We would love to support these third-party apps, but it's not possible.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, Matthew here has come up with a really good point in that you would just have to have render only mode turned off and have a big file. Is right, but to be the only way.
It can be impossible in some cases because you have too many objects to generate.
Every blade of grass.
Yeah.
Very heavy.
So I think just two more questions, and I think these are pretty straightforward ones. So first question, can Skatter version 1 coexist with Skatter version 2 inside a SketchUp environment?
Yes, absolutely. So we made sure of this. So you can try version 2 alongside version 1 if you want to keep your old projects with Skatter version 1. You can absolutely do that. And whenever you want, you can upgrade your V1 compositions to V2. There are some slight differences between the two, so you may not get the exact same result. So if it's important to you that your projects stay exactly the same to the pixel, then you should not upgrade your compositions. But if it's not important and you want to use the new features in V2, then please do so.
Yeah, I think that's what we've done. You know, we're slowly working our way up to getting everybody upgraded to version 2, just because, you know, even the stuff you've been looking at today, Thomas, has just been mind-blowing. I think just from my perspective as someone that uses Skatter most days, this is going to completely change how we work. And, you know, you've done an amazing job of adding so many new features and functionalities to this already. You know, really, really amazing plugin. So yeah, big thank you from us for that.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you. But it's just the beginning. A lot of time that we spent building Skatter V2 was to rebuild it from scratch, actually. So now we have a really solid and nice foundation upon which we can build and add new powerful features. So there will be more in the coming months and years.
Perfect.
That we'll hope will be as exciting for you than this was.
We look forward to it. We look forward to it.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Well, I think we're probably there then, Dan, unless there's anything you think is...
Well, we've got to pick a winner. Or
we have.
3.
I actually already have.
You've already done it?
I have. So,
okay.
So as you guys were talking, I got up our random number generator and it gave me a few numbers, and I went through the list of everyone here, and I was able to come up with some names. So our first winner, they've actually just commented, so that's funny, is and this is going to test all my names. It's Joanne Segara. I'll pop it in the chat as well.
Congratulations.
So Joanne, so you've won the Skatter. So you've won the Skatter license. So that's brilliant. So everything that you've just seen, you can now put into action. Then we've got Neil Houston, who won our Access into V-Ray course. So congratulations, Neil. And then Neil. Is Neil there? I should really check. So Joanne's there. Hopefully Neil's watching as well. And then we've got our third winner who won our Transmutr license, and that's Marco. Oh, I'm so bad at names.
You're struggling, aren't you, with names today?
I am. Marco Patrasivic. But I'll pop all of the names in the chat. Congratulations, guys. We'll be in touch probably next week now, but we'll definitely be in touch and advise you on how to claim your prizes. So I think that's pretty much it from me. Thank you so much for attending, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thomas, Moen, thank you so much for being a part of it. I can honestly say I think these guys have really, really enjoyed it. Even I've learned something, and I'm not even a 3D artist. So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, and it was really great to be able to showcase Skatter in the context of a real world project like that. I think that's really interesting. So we should do that again.
Definitely. This won't be the last.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Well, stay tuned. We'll be in touch very soon with a newsletter that will have the recording of this webinar in it, as well as links, things that we've discussed. And everything in there.
The newsletter will contain a coupon code that will run until the end of the month. So just for you guys, you can get Skatter with a discount.
Very generous. Thank you, Thomas.
Fantastic. We'll pop that all together, send that all out to you. Have a lovely rest of your day, everyone. We've been the Archilime Academy. These guys have been Skatter. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everybody.